All right, here we go. So, on this problem 3, on your practice test, right? Chapter 5. So chapter 5, practice test, problem 3. We are looking at, they give you, so it's a given, RQ is congruent, RQ is congruent to TQ. So we're going to put that line in there, and that's telling me that this segment is congruent to that segment. Cool? The other thing is that QRS, so that means QRS is the measure of Q, is it, oh my God, QSR, I was tripping. QSR is 5A, so that means this angle right here is 5A. Now we don't know if it's congruent or not, so I'm going to put 2 lines there at first, because I don't know if it's congruent to this other one, which is QTS or QST. QST is A minus 10, okay? And that's the key. We got to figure out, is it congruent? Is it complementary? Is it supplementary, right? So we're going to use some things that we know. The first thing we know is what? That we have a right angle, correct? So we know that QRS, so QRS angle, QRS, right? Or the measure of QRS is equal to the measure of QTS, the measure of QTS, which is also equal to 90 degrees. Because they show us this symbol. Remember, this square is a symbol for 90 degrees. Does that make sense? All right. So, how do we know? Because what? It's given. This is also given, but it's given in the example. So you can say given, and you can also say definition of perpendicular right angles. Okay? It's up to you. But it's given, so we know it. All right, next. What else is given? SQ is congruent to QS, right? Now, that takes us way back to chapter 1. So is that reflexive or symmetric? If I say QS, or the measure of QS, or this is congruent, so let's stick with congruency. So QS is congruent to SQ. Now, if I write it that way, that would be symmetric. If I said QS is congruent to QS, that would be reflexive, right? So if we did this, QS is congruent to QS, that is reflexive. But what we want, because these are going in different, order, right? We want them to be able to go in that same order. Now this is going to QS, so we might want to use reflexive, right? Because QS is congruent to QS. Does that make sense? So I would use reflexive over the going backwards, which is, this would be symmetric. So the one we're going to stick with is this, reflexive, okay? Because we want to see QS and QS. So when we're looking at this triangle, the triangle QRS or QSR, or how are we going to do it? RSQ. How about we do that? Triangle RSQ, right? Or actually we have it as QS. So RQS is congruent to TQS. Does that make sense? We have to go in the same order, right? From this one, which is the 90-degree part, to this one, to this one. Okay? So we're going to start with, and then we got to go, sorry, and I'll try to finish this on the video. But we're going to start with Q, the triangle Q, QSR. Let's do that. QSR. And then that way we're using this QS, right? Is congruent to triangle QST. And last semester we know that because why? We have angle, right? Angle, side, and side, right? Angle, side, and side. So that's what we're doing. We're using ASS because it's right. The ass only works when it's right. Oh, I said that on video. Okay, so now other way to say that is what? Hypotenuse leg. Okay? Hypotenuse leg. So ASS only works if there's a right angle. Okay? Alright, so those are congruent, and we're going to keep going. If you want to move the class, go ahead. I can write you a pass. I'm going to keep talking to the video, so I'll have it all on the video this weekend. Alright, next. What do we do from that? Alright, so we know that they're congruent. That means that these angles are now congruent. So that means that the angle QSR, so the measure of the angle QSR is equal to the measure of the angle of QST. Okay? Why? Due to congruent triangles. Okay? So we know the triangles are congruent. That way the measure of the angles are equal. Okay? From there, we take it another step. Since I know they're equal, now I just plug in what those measurements are. And those measurements are QSR is 5A. QST is A minus 10. Okay? So those degrees are now equal. Right? Because the measures are equal. And why? Substitution. What do we do next? Okay? Next, solve. Move the lowest to A. So I'm a minus A, so I got 4A is equal to negative 10. Right? And then I will, that is subtraction property of equality. So what's next? Divide. Divide by 4, divide by 4. A is equal to, now I'm going to also break it down. So division, property of equality, followed by simplifying. And that's going to give me, what goes into 10 and 4, 2. So that will go in there, negative 5 over 2. And that's what A is. Okay? They want QST. Which one's QST? A minus 10, right? So, we plug it in. Substitution. Measure of angle QST is equal to A, which is negative 5 over 2, minus 10. Okay? And so, that's substitution, right? And so, what is 5/2 really? 5/2 is really 2 1/2. That's really negative 2 1/2 minus 10 is going to be the measure of angle QST is equal to negative 12 1/2. Why? Simplify. That's it. And that is how we would do number 3.
What's the little squiggle in front of the angle?
The little squiggle in front of the angle. Oh, that's M. This one? Sorry about that. That's a little M to say the measure of that angle. So the measure allows us to say equals versus congruent. So this is a great proof to kind of incorporate everything we've been using this year. Now, if you wrote this in words, again, in words, so that we're ready for that state test, we were giving these, the angle, the two angles, we were given the segment, we were also given that these two angles were 90 degrees, so therefore we determined through the reflexive property that this segment was congruent. From that we determined from the triangle congruence property, or theorem, right, that the two triangles were congruent. Because the two triangles were congruent, we were able to substitute in the two angles. We know that the angles are congruent or equal, so we could substitute in their properties and then solve using basic algebra. So we subtracted by both sides, and then we divided by both sides, and then we simplified that fraction to come up with something to substitute back in to the original equation of that angle, and found that the angle measure was -12.5. Okay? And that's all written. Everything I just said there is written on your test in a paragraph form. This gives you 4 out of 4. This gives you 3. This gives you 1. This gives you 2. Okay?
Copying my
There you go.
shoes, bro?
There's an example.